You are standing in a remote, dusty stretch of wilderness near the Sea of Galilee. The brutal heat of the day is finally breaking, giving way to the cool shadow of late afternoon. But the relief of the evening brings a new kind of terror. You look around. You are surrounded by a crushing, desperate sea of humanity. There are at least 5,000 men here. Add the women and children, and you are standing in a crowd of 15, maybe 20,000 people. They have walked miles on foot. They are exhausted, and they are starving. Up ahead stands a rabbi from Nazareth. He is exhausted too. He just received the news that his cousin, John the Baptist, was brutally beheaded. He crossed the sea, looking for a quiet place to grieve. Instead, he found this massive crowd waiting for him on the shore. The sun dips lower. The panic starts to set in. There are no towns nearby, no markets, no backup plan. Jesus turns to a man named Philip. Philip is a practical man. He is a local from a nearby town. He is the kind of guy who knows the area, knows the economy, and knows exactly how bad this situation is. Jesus looks at the endless sea of hungry faces, turns to Philip, and asks him a very simple, terrifying question. Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat? It is a cruel question, or at least it seems like one, because the writer of the gospel tells us something remarkable. Jesus already knew exactly what he was going to do. So why ask the question? Why force Philip to do the mental gymnastics of a completely impossible situation? We are going to find out exactly why, but hold that thought. Because to understand what is actually happening on this grassy hillside, you have to realize something. This is not a story about a piece of bread. This is not a story about a magic trick with fish. This is not a story about solving physical hunger. This is a cosmic, earth-shaking declaration. A new Moses has just stepped into a new wilderness. This event, this feeding of the 5,000, is the only miracle, other than the resurrection, that is recorded in all four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All four of them looked at this moment and realized they could not tell the story of the Son of God without it. To really grasp the weight of this moment, you have to back up a few hours. You have to look at the tragedy that set this whole day in motion. Word has just reached the disciples that John the Baptist is dead, and not just dead. Executed by a paranoid king, John was a prophet, he was family, and Jesus feels the weight of that loss. He tells his disciples to get into a boat and go with him to a desolate place. They need rest, they need to grieve, but the crowds see them leaving. They track the trajectory of the boat from the shore, and they run, thousands of them. They run on foot, kicking up dust, driven by desperate hope. By the time the boat touches the sand on the other side, the desolate place is not desolate anymore. It is packed. Think about how you would react. You are grieving. You are exhausted. You just wanted one quiet afternoon. You would probably be frustrated, annoyed. You would tell them to go home. But Mark's gospel tells us exactly how Jesus reacts when he steps out of that boat and sees the overwhelming sea of human need. He had compassion on them. In English, compassion sounds polite. It sounds like a sympathy card. But the Greek word used here is entirely different. The word is splagchnizomai. It is a heavy, visceral word. It means to be moved in your inward parts. It is a twisting in the gut, a physical ache. Jesus looks at this massive, chaotic crowd, and his heart breaks open. Why? Mark tells us the exact reason. He felt this gut-wrenching compassion because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Here's what most people miss. That specific phrase is not an accident. It is a massive historical echo. Centuries earlier, the great leader of Israel stood before God, knowing his time was ending, and he prayed a very specific prayer. Moses asked God to appoint a leader over the congregation so that the people of the Lord would not be, quote, as sheep which have no shepherd. Jesus is stepping into the exact role Moses prayed for. He is the true shepherd arriving for his scattered flock. But right now the flock is hungry. The sun is sinking below the hills. The sky is turning purple and bruised, and the tension is escalating. Put yourself in the disciples' shoes. You are looking at 20,000 mouths to feed. You are standing in the middle of nowhere. Panic is a perfectly logical response. The disciples come to Jesus with the only sensible plan: send the crowds away. Let them go into the surrounding villages and buy themselves something to eat. It is late. We are out of resources. Dismiss the problem. Jesus looks at them and delivers a command that must have sounded like a cruel joke. You give them something to eat. Philip, the local guy, immediately starts crunching the numbers. He does the math. 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get even a little crumb. 200 denarii is more than half a year's wages for a working man. It is an impossible sum. Philip looks at the spreadsheet of their reality, and the math simply does not work. Then Andrew steps forward. Andrew is always the one noticing the small details. He finds a boy in the crowd, a young boy carrying 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Notice the detail there: barley, not wheat. Barley was the cheapest grain available. It was the food of the poor. It was the bread of the desperate. And the fish were small, likely pickled or dried. Just enough to give a little flavor to the dry bread. Imagine being that boy, handing over your only meal to a group of frantic grown men. Andrew brings this meager, pathetic offering to the creator of the universe. But even as he hands it over, doubt crushes him. He looks at the 5 small loaves. He looks at the 20,000 starving people. And he asks the question we all ask when our resources do not match our reality. But what are these among so many? It is the ultimate statement of human limitation. We do not have enough. We are completely out of options. And this is where it gets remarkable. So look at exactly where we are. We have a grieving rabbi looking for rest. We have a team of panicked disciples trying to act like accountants. And we have a starving, desperate crowd stranded in the middle of a desolate wilderness as the sun goes down. There is a reason Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all refuse to leave this story out of their accounts. It is because what happens next changes everything we understand about who Jesus actually claimed to be. Before we look at the miracle itself, if you are finding value in this breakdown, if seeing the Bible through this historical lens helps the text come alive for you, take a second to subscribe to the channel. It really helps me keep making these videos for you. Now, let's go back to that grassy hillside and the 5 small loaves of barley. The Gospel of John gives us a tiny, seemingly insignificant detail about this day. John says, "Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand." Why does that matter? It matters because of what the Passover represented. The 1st century Jewish historian Josephus tells us that during Passover, Jerusalem would swell with millions of pilgrims. The atmosphere in the country was always electric. It was highly tense. Roman guards would stand on the walls of the temple, hands on their swords, waiting for a riot to break out. Because Passover was the time the Jewish people celebrated their deliverance from slavery in Egypt. It was the time they remembered Moses. And it was the time they actively prayed for God to send a new deliverer to crush the Romans. That is the energy of this crowd. If you are sitting in that multitude, you are desperate for a new Moses. You are waiting for heaven to tear open. Now watch what happens next. Jesus takes the 5 barley loaves and the 2 fish. But before he does anything with the food, he gives an order to the disciples. He tells them to have everyone sit down. Mark's Gospel records the scene with a very specific, almost strange detail. He says they sat down in groups, by hundreds and by 50s upon the green grass. Why would Mark care about the exact math of how they sat down? Why hundreds and 50s? Pay attention to this. Because centuries earlier, when the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness, completely disorganized and overwhelmed, Moses received advice on how to lead them. You can read it in the 18th chapter of Exodus. Moses organized the people into groups of thousands, hundreds, 50s, and 10s. Jesus is not just managing a crowd. He is deliberately recreating the camp of Israel in the wilderness. He is organizing them exactly the way Moses organized their ancestors. And they are sitting on green grass. It is springtime, the exact season of the Passover. the exact season the original manna fell from heaven. Imagine you are a Jewish man sitting on that grass. You would have felt the electricity of what was happening. The pieces are locking together in real time. A desolate place, a divided crowd organized by 50s and 100s. A leader stepping into the role of a shepherd. You are sitting in the wilderness, and you are about to receive bread from heaven. Jesus takes the loaves, he looks up to heaven. He blesses the food, breaks it, and gives it to the disciples to distribute. We often imagine this as a loud, flashy spectacle, but it wasn't. It was quiet. It happened in the hands of the Savior. The disciples just kept walking back to him, and his hands were never empty. He just kept breaking the bread over and over and over. 5,000 men, 15 to 20,000 people in total. And they did not just get a crumb. The text says they ate until they were completely satisfied. But Jesus is not finished making his point. When everyone is full, he tells the disciples to gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing is lost. They walk through the grass, picking up the pieces, and they fill exactly 12 baskets. 12, not 10, not 15, 12. In the biblical world, numbers are never an accident. There were 12 tribes of Israel. By producing exactly 12 baskets of leftovers, Jesus is making a profound, undeniable statement to this crowd. He is saying, I am the God who provides, and I am more than enough to restore the entire nation of Israel. He is the new Moses, he is the new manna, and the crowd finally realizes it. The Gospel of John tells us that when the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." But they completely misunderstand him, because they want a political king who will magically produce bread and overthrow Rome. The stakes are instantly at their highest. They are about to rush him. They are about to take him by force and put a crown on his head. The crowd is in a frenzy. They have just eaten a miraculous meal in the wilderness, and they have decided Jesus is the military king they have been waiting for. They are ready to take him by force, put a crown on his head, and march on Rome. But Jesus does not want their crown. He withdraws to the mountain by himself. He refuses to be a vending machine for their physical desires, because they completely missed the point of the bread. Let's look closer at the moment Jesus actually performs the miracle. The Gospel writers tell us that Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them. The word used for giving thanks is specific. The Greek word is Eucharisteo. You might recognize the sound of it. It is where the church gets the word Eucharist, or communion. This moment in the grass was not just a picnic, it was a preview. Jesus is holding a cheap barley loaf. He is tearing it apart with his hands. He is passing the broken pieces out to a starving, dying world. Just a short time later, in a quiet upper room, he will perform the exact same physical motion. He will take bread, give thanks, break it, and say, "This is my body, which is given for you." The crowd in the wilderness wanted physical bread. They wanted full stomachs. They had no idea they were watching a demonstration of the cross. They had no idea they were eating from the hands of the bread of life. And this brings us all the way back to the beginning of the day, to the panic, to Philip. Remember the cruel question Jesus asked him hours earlier. Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat? Jesus already knew what he was going to do. The question was a test. It was a mirror held up to Philip's soul. Jesus wanted Philip to look at the massive, impossible situation, look at his own empty hands, and then look at the man standing right in front of him. Philip failed the test. He pulled out his mental calculator. He did the math of the physical world. He calculated the denarii. He looked at the spreadsheet of his reality and decided the problem was totally unsolvable. Philip was standing face to face with the God who spoke the universe into existence. He was looking at the God who designed the genetic code of wheat and the biology of fish. And Philip was worried about finding a local bakery. Before you judge Philip, think about your own life. Because we all do exactly what Philip did. You have been in that exact same panic. You sit at a kitchen table late at night, staring at a bank account that is draining to zero. You sit in a cold clinic room, holding a medical diagnosis that offers no hope and no cure. You look at a marriage that is completely fractured. You face an addiction that seems impossible to break. You look at your 5 meager loaves of effort. You look at the massive, overwhelming crisis in front of you. And you say exactly what Andrew said. What are these among so many? You do the math. The math tells you it is over. The math tells you to send the problem away, dismiss it, or just give up. You calculate the odds based entirely on what you hold in your own hands. But you are calculating the odds without factoring in the Creator. Jesus does not need your resources to match the size of your crisis. He does not need you to have 200 denarii. He does not need you to figure out the logistics of the miracle. He just needs you to hand over the broken, inadequate pieces you actually have. He takes the little we offer. He gives thanks. And in His hands, the impossible becomes entirely possible. So, when you step back and look at this miracle across all 4 Gospels, it leaves us with 3 profound truths. First, Jesus is the greater Moses. He did not come just to solve a temporary political problem or overthrow an empire. He stepped onto that grassy hillside as the true shepherd. He came to lead a scattered, exhausted people through a new wilderness, offering them the true manna from heaven. Second, God's mathematics always begin with our surrender. He does not demand that you have the resources, the money, or the power to fix your own crisis. He only asks that you stop doing the math. He asks you to place your inadequate, broken pieces directly into His hands. And third, He does not just want to solve your hunger. He wants to be your life. Jesus did not come to hand you a loaf of barley to get you through a difficult afternoon. He came to break His own body so that your soul would never starve again. Have you ever felt exactly like Philip? Have you ever stood in the middle of your own wilderness, desperately trying to calculate a way out of an impossible situation? Tell me about it in the comments below, because the next time you find yourself tallying up your own limitations, remember who is standing on the grass right in front of you.